All right, hello everybody. How we doing today for another Zoom at noon stunt guitar clinic with Rob Kraft? And today we're going to be doing some shred picking. Right? You're going to be doing some pretty out there shreddy right hand stuff. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Rob, and he'll tell. Oh, if you look at the chat, there is a tab. I just posted it again. There's a tab for all of this stuff, and for all of the exercises and everything. So be sure to check that out. I'll post it a couple times in case you miss it. It's just like a Google Docs PDF, so easy. Anybody can pull it up. But if you do have problems, let me know and I can send it to you as well. All right, Rob.
All right.
You.
All right. So today we're talking about, quick alternate picking, or, like shred picking, or tremolo picking might be another, kind of term that you've heard. And this is going to be like strict alternate picking. So last week we were doing sweep picking, which is about trying to use like the same pick stroke across multiple strings, most commonly used to execute like arpeggios. But there are a whole bunch of other stuff you can do with that sort of sweep picking, something that's called economy picking, which we'll probably do a thing on another time. So this is like strict alternate picking. That means that you're picking down and then up and then down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up. So we're never going to do two downs or two ups in a row. Think of it almost like we're trying to make your picking hand be like a sprinter. So you want that sort of like explosive kind of speed, is what we're, ultimately going to be trying to work on. So the first thing is to try to experiment with just how you're going to create your picking motion. So there's kind of like three different ways, I think, of just making the general picking motion. So we'll start with the one that I did as a kid when I really started playing a lot, which was really kind of picking straight from like my elbow. So you kind of like lock your wrist and you're trying to basically muscle use, because your basically your wrist is like a smaller muscle than like your elbow. So if you pick just from your elbow like that, you're going to get more speed because you're using like a stronger muscle on your body. The advantage of that is, like I said, you can get more speed. If you pick from your elbow, you'll always be able to outpick, picking from your wrist, which would be another way of alternate picking. So that's one way to work on it. I tend to kind of do a combination now of sort of a little bit of my wrist with, a decent amount of my elbow. Another way of doing it would be kind of like Eddie Van Halen's way of tremolo picking or speed picking. So I can't really do it very well. I'll do my best, but it was kind of like this like shake, sort of like that, if that sort of makes sense. And then he would just kind of like shake his wrist. I can't do it like at all on the guitar, but basically something kind of like that. So for me, I tend to pick like this, or if I'm trying to pick faster, it's sort of like a combination of my wrist and my elbow. But Eddie would do this like kind of shake thing in order to get that speed thing going on. So that's another way of experimenting. Keep in mind with all of these kind of techniques that talk about that, like, there's more than one way of getting, the right answer. Just experiment, see what works for you. So for me, like, again, the main types are like kind of from your elbow, from your wrist, or this like, kind of like shake thing that Eddie Van Halen would do. So I'd recommend, just go on YouTube and watch like Eddie Van Halen play Eruption. Because that's got a little picking thing that we're going to actually be working on later today. And you'll see his motions. Kind of unique. There's not that many other guitar players that really do it that way. So that's the first part. So just experiment with how you're going to create your speed, and keep in mind that it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And we don't want to do two downs or two ups. We're like a sprinter. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. If you try to do left, you're going to trip and fall, So be efficient here, because we're trying to pick very, very quickly. How's it going so far? Everybody cool?
Yeah. On board.
All right, sweet. So example number one is basically just working on going from like a walking pace to like a sprinting pace. So I've got specific subdivisions written down. To start with this, you really don't have to worry that much about it. We're just trying to get to picking fast. But basically, example 1 is like picking eighth notes, then switching to 16th notes, then sextuplets, and then finally 32nd notes. And so, like I said, I'll play it the way I wrote it out, you know, with these specific subdivisions. But if that's too challenging because you're not going to have the pick control yet, that's okay. You can just, you know, work on picking smooth, slowly, and then just try to pick as fast as you can, basically. I mean, you know, and then when that falls apart, slow down and then build it back up again. So this is example number 1. Nice and simple. You know, if we're feeling like a slow tempo like this, like I'm thinking around like 75, 80 BPM, just like eighth notes to start, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, and then you switch to 16ths. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then sextuplets, and then finally 30 seconds. And that's like sorry, I forgot to ask. Can everyone hear me? Like, am I loud enough?
You could probably crank your volume up a little
bit.
Though you can hear it, but it's pretty mute.
Sorry, I forgot to ask.
All good. That's
a little bit better.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Now we sense some tone too.
There we go. All right. Well, I'll do it again. So remember the last subdivision, that's like the one that we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to those like kind of 30-second notes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so that's the end goal is really kind of that last one. So if trying to go through like I said, if trying to go through all these different subdivisions is too challenging because you know, ultimately we're working on like your rhythm and your ability to change subdivisions. If all that is too much, then don't sweat it. You know, just pick slow, gradually get quicker till you're as fast as you can, and then just gradually get slower, and then you can kind of like rev it up almost like an engine, you know, like that kind of thing to help you develop, you know, the top end sort of speed.
So are you always, are you holding your pick the same way you would hold it if you were just doing straight alternate picking?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, I forgot to mention that. So I hold my pick a little bit like Paul Gilbert holds his pick. A video I saw like a million years ago. I actually kind of did it just sort of on my own as a kid, finding whatever was comfortable. But Paul Gilbert always talks about how if you don't know who he is, he's like crazy good. He got famous playing in Mr. Big. They wrote that song To Be With You. But like, as far as like a player, I mean, the guy is just crazy good. And he's like a fun dude. He's like really goofy and quirky. And that's kind of fun because in the shred guitar thing, a lot of guys tend to take themselves a little too seriously. So it's nice to have somebody who's kind of goofy and fun. But anyway, any rate, he would angle his thumb forward slightly. And what that's going to do is it's going to change the angle that the pick strikes the string. So if you think of the string, you don't want to hit your string at like a 90-degree angle straight on because the pick is going to get kind of hung up on it. By pitching the pick forward slightly, it's going to hit the string at more of like a 45-degree angle. Think like the way a propeller is shaped. It's shaped to like hit the water and like kind of scoop against it. So for me, I play like just the same pick. I play a Jim Dunlop Jazz 3, which is another thing I forgot to mention. You want to pick. Nice.
It's similar.
You need a pick with a good point. Like a regular old Fender like confetti is too rounded. Like you're not going to get a strong attack with that kind of a pick. Like those picks are great for other things, but like for speed picking, you need a nice point. And I play the same model, and I hold them the same because there's writing like different on both sides. So one side says Jim Dunlop, the other side says Jazz 3. And I found that if I hold it one way versus the other, it like hurts my finger. So I always have the Jim Dunlop logo on my thumb, and I can like feel it. And anyway, it makes a wear mark, and then my picks turn into like kind of like propellers with these like weird wear edges. Yeah. And then that, you know, again, will help the pick like kind of slide off the string. It's like the picks have like a sweet spot. When they're brand new, they're like too rough. This one's a little too worn. It's probably ready to be thrown out. So, you know, this is like, you know, been playing for 20 years now. And Jude, use the red Jazz 3s. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. But Eric Johnson Eric John? Yeah. Eric Johnson's got his own Jazz 3 too, which I think they're a little grippier. Mm-hmm. So, and the ones that I've found, these, like, you can actually just get these right on these are on the Dunlop site. They're like, what do they call it? The plectra something. Prime tone. So they're similar. They're the Jazz 3s. They're a fancier handmade one that they're like, the grip on it is very like sandpapery. So I like it.
Yeah, you know, and like just experiment. You know, for me, it's like I've landed on the black Jazz 3. Those are the ones that I like the most, and those are the ones that I tend to just use. But you know, there's no writing.
I know it seems crazy that we're talking this much about a pick. Your pick is what makes the instrument make sound, though, right? So this is a part of your instrument, the pick, what you choose to do with your pick. There's going to be different ones, like Rob's saying, for different jobs, like a Fender medium or confetti. Like those are really good for like strumming, right? They've got it puts a good sound because there's actually going to be tone coming from your pick, right? Your sound is going to be changed by what kind of pick you use as well. I know a lot of lead guitar players that I know play with these little Jazz 3 style picks. So for shredders and blues players and everybody pretty much I know, a lot of them play the Jazz 3s. So they take it. Yeah. So Jude just said they're awesome, but they're really small and take some getting used to if you're going from regular size picks. Yes, he's exactly right. They do feel a little. They're probably 2/3 of the size of a regular pick. So, but you get used to it quickly.
And I hold my pick like really, really close to the point.
Yeah,
I kind of always have. It helps you for tremolo picking or this kind of like, you know, quick stuff. It's like gives you more control. So for me, like a regular like it'd be like a ton of plastic, like just sticking in the back part of my finger that you don't need anyway. So it's like once you get used to holding it close to the point, it like the size makes sense then, you know?
And that makes sense. Being up high on your pick makes sense for the harmonics that we talked about actually with Rob Wickline the other day. Those pinch harmonics, that's where your finger is going to be if you're doing pinch harmonics as well, is that you're close to the edge of the pick, right? So, anybody got any questions or anything yet? You want to do that? You want to do that example again? And
yeah, sure.
Into it. Sorry. Aside. Nice.
Not the smoothest transitions into 30 seconds, but whatever. Cool. So that's the idea. You know, number one is just like, okay, let's get that basic picking motion happening as smooth and as steady as you can. Example number two, this is actually something I came up with in lesson with one of my students, Tommy Bach, because we were working on Eruption. And I had never really worked on the speed picking thing with Tommy before. So this was just something I like came up like spur of the moment, like, okay, well, what's like a simple way we can start to practice just changing between strings? Because your strings are all different gauges. They're all different, you know, sizes. So they're going to have different resistance. They're going to push back against the pick differently. When you get to your wound strings, like right now I've been picking all on like the first string, which is unwound. When you get to your wound strings, the wound ones are also going to react differently to the pick. So the idea of number two is just like, okay, we got our basic movement down. Now let's just practice picking across those different strings. And also it's going to feel different as you go too, because when you're picking on the first string, your hand's going to be like more down towards your pickup. As you go up, you're going to be picking in like a new location. So we got to kind of get used to that little change as well. So it's a pretty simple idea. It's just one note in an E minor pentatonic box per string. So we're doing like 12 fret on the first string, 15 on the second, 12, 14, 12, 15, and then just kind of back again. So that was kind of like nice and slow and steady. And, you know, eventually you want to try to speed it up. So that's number two, you know, just like basic pentatonic and starting to practice, just like I said, changing between the strings, getting used to your hand kind of moving across the strings as you're doing kind of the quick picking thing. Also, I forgot to say too, for me, I like to kind of hook my pinky on the corner of my bridge pickup. That kind of helps give my hand like a balance point. Not everyone does that. Like Paul Gilbert picks in this way. He has such a weird way he holds his hand. He like makes this like claw kind of, and then he like rests like sort of this part of his hand by his bridge, and then kind of gets the speed kind of that way. That's where he gets his sort of balance point. I like to hook it on the edge of the pickup. Now, if you got like a Fender Strat, the problem is your knob is going to be in the way. So I've always been interested in this kind of speed picking sort of thing. So like a Fender Strat would never work for me because the knob is like right where I put my pinky, and then you bump into it. It's one of the reasons I like this guitar a lot, because the volume knobs are moved far away. They're out of the way, so you're not going to bump into them when you're picking real quick. You know, that has the disadvantage of, you know, that volume control isn't as close. It's not as quick and easy to do, you know, little subtle volume changes. But, you know, it just depends on what you're doing. You know, the controls are out of the way. On my other Ibanez guitar, I straight up move the volume knob. So it's like, you know, I've drilled guitars to move them before, actually. Just, you know, it's in the way for what I do, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another thing to kind of think about and experiment, not just the motion itself, but like if you want some sort of a balance point, obviously you need to still worry about muting. Muting is a huge part of this. Palm muting, even while you're, you know, playing the note, like this is unmuted. And then this is muted. So you want to be able to do both. You want to be able to play the note unmuted and muted, really kind of across all the strings. You know, palm muting on like the first string or second is like basically not going to sound great, but like on the third on down, I definitely recommend working on that too. I've just been rambling. How are you doing?
That's good. No, that was really good stuff. Also, I just like to point this out. If you look at Rob's guitar ever and you kind of get confused by it, Rob's got it's a 7-string today, right?
Yeah.
Seven string today. So sometimes he's got an 8, sometimes he's got a 7. It's never a 6.
Yeah, I have a 6 right now. I do actually have a 6, but just for a bit, not for too much longer.
So if there's an extra string on the low end. So if you notice, if you're looking at the tab and you wonder why he's not on the same string, maybe that's the only thing. So.
And all the examples, you know, like there's nothing obviously on my 7th string that we're working on today. So like everything we're doing, you'll be able to play. You'll have the correct amount of strings.
Yes, yeah. Just something to point out. Rob's got these awesome, crazy, cool guitars. That one's beautiful. I love that one.
Yeah, I know this one's totally cool.
Like it's got that like Fender color vibe, you know, but that seafoam kind of vibe. But definitely not a Fender.
Yeah. Definitely not a Fender. They're all sideways and weird, or fanned and all weirdness.
Yeah. See, I'm a Strat guy. Like, I love Strats for what I play. Like, that's like something that, like, I've tried out all these different guitars, and I like weird stuff. It's not that I don't like weird things, but a Strat just feels like home for me. Whenever I try and go, I've had Tellys, I've had Les Pauls, I've had SGs, I've had Dan Electros. Like, I've tried to get way out, but Strats, whenever I put a Strat on, I'm like, yep. Feels like home. So whatever feels good to you is what you play, right?
Yeah. And that like single coil tone too, like, especially for the music that you play, like, it's you're not going to get that out of something else,
Right. No, exactly. Right. All right. Let's move on to exercise 3, I guess, right?
Yeah. What are we on now? 3. So this is from Eruption. This is the it's actually a classical melody. My music history teacher from college is probably mad at me because I should remember the classical piece and I can't. So he's like it's like a thing he's just quoting is where this little melody comes from. And the idea here is just now we're trying to move between notes quicker. So it's 30-second notes, and we're just blasting through them. You could really, there's a couple different ways I could have written it out, actually. I mean, I could have written it just as 16th notes with a quicker BPM. So just to explain like that real quick, remember that like rhythm and tempo and subdivision is all kind of relative. So in other words, if I say to you, I'm feeling a song at 75 BPM, and you say like, well, I'm feeling it at 150, we can both technically be right if they're divisible of each other. In other words, like, it all just depends on how you want to interpret it. So I had put the tempo in at 75 in this, so that's why everything is 30-second notes. But you could just times that by 2 and then think of it as 16th notes. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything.
We talked about that. We actually talked about that in Keaton's like metronome clinic. So, now they're all starting to overlap, and we can point to them. Go like, hey, go watch them out. If you're not sure about it, go check that metronome clinic out, all right? So I know that doesn't sound like the most interesting clinic to go watch as a metronome clinic. It doesn't sound as fun as stunt guitar, but we should just I need to come up with better names for all of them. Mega metronome, I don't know.
There you go. That's pretty good. Yeah, so it's like, think about like when you get your guitar in tune, you need a tuner, right? You need a metronome to get your rhythm in tune, like think of a metronome as like it's a rhythmic tuner. I like that. At any rate, this is 4 notes basically, or like 4 picks per note. So I wrote the little shift in there too. This isn't like it says slide, but it's more a shift than it is like a slide. It's not so much like a slide that you're going to hear. So the basic notes. Basically that. So 12 to 16, 19, 17, 16, 17, 14, 16, and then the thing just repeats. So the first thing I'd recommend is just figure that out. Just play through the notes one at a time, because there's a couple different ways you could really do the shifts. For me, that's the way that I play it. So it's like index, pinky, and then I slide up and go pinky, middle, index, middle, and then a little shift, index, ring finger, and then back down. But there's different ways you could do it. Just learn the notes, and at that point, then start to just pick each one 4 times. And it repeats twice. And then eventually we'll talk about this little descending thing that I tabbed out. I don't think it's exactly what he played, but it's pretty close. So then at that point,
do you have a question? I think we have a question.
It sounds like it's a classical. It could be a classical song.
Yeah, well, it is a classical song. It's a melody from a classical piece.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, good ear though, right? That's great. That's great.
I don't remember what piece it is.
Yeah, I can't. I like it's very familiar, but I can't put my finger on which one it is either. Or it's also could be it's borrowed, right, from something it may not be note for note from a classical piece, but it's close, right? And we do that a lot. I mean, that happens all the time in popular music. I mean, especially music that I write. I'll get sometimes people go, oh, that reminds me of this song. I don't know if, and it's like, all right, yeah, well, I was like, yeah, I listened to that band, so maybe I write some stuff like that, right? So Steely Dan, that's usually sometimes people give us Steely Dan, and I'm like, yeah, well, I love Steely Dan, so sick. All right. Everybody clear on episode 3?
I'll play number 3 now, like the whole thing, because there's this little kind of descending part as well. Like I said, it's close to what's on the recording of Eruption. Also, keep in mind with Eruption, the crazy thing about that is that whole thing. Apparently, Eddie Van Halen just had he had a solo spot that he would do every night. And they just laid down whatever kind of he had been doing at the time. But Eruption was different, very often. He would play different things. So that's just the one that he happened to record that then, became super famous. So, there are different variations too. So the whole thing, kind of more up to speed. I wasn't really playing it up to speed. So the ending is my own thing just for now, just to have some way of wrapping it up. Cool. I think you can see my whole neck. One more time. Cool.
Nice.
So that's the whole, that's a way of kind of wrapping it up and sort of ending that thing, wiggling your way down the neck. The cool thing about Eddie Van Halen's playing as well is that he plays a lot of wrong notes, a lot of notes that are out of key. A big thing with Eddie was that he would, I've seen a million interviews where he would think of just take a shape, a symmetrical shape. So maybe 7 or 8, 7, 5. And he would just play it down, down all the strings. And you're going to get random notes that pop up. Some of them are in key. Some of them are a blue note or a blues scale kind of thing.
Right.
Some of them are straight up just wrong notes. But remember, there is not really any such thing as a wrong note. So it's you could sit there and you could analyze it okay, we're in A. So he's playing the minor third, the second, the root, the flat 7, the natural 6, the 5th, the flat 5, the 4, and then a flat 9, and then the root again, and then a flat 13 here, so you could sit down and you could analyze it like it's a jazz solo,
But he was probably just doing it for efficiency's sake.
Exactly. Yeah. And because the way he would play was so, he's not dead, he's alive. The way he still plays is so smooth that it sounds crazy cool, because the way he's executing it was so smooth and so effortless, and the notes are just flying by, and that makes them really sound, correct, as far as getting used to hearing chromatics and that kind of thing. Just it all sounds crazy cool, So just experiment with that too. Remember, once you've learned a scale shape too, start to, take a pentatonic box. That's the first thing I teach all my students. Start to add some notes to it. Start to have some fun. See if you can find some stuff that you think sounds cool.
Sweet, yeah, yeah. That's a good point with the just how he does it. It's all for efficient. It's really for efficiency, and he doesn't care. And the faster you go, the less time you're spending on the wrong notes, and people usually don't pick it up when they're listening. When you fly right past things, it's hard to catch it, right? So.
Yeah, in the context of like a quick run, there is no such thing really as a wrong note. Now, if you stop and sit on one of those, like, altered jazz notes that I was just saying, yeah, no, that's going to be wrong. That's going to sound bad. But like, if you use it in a, he's using it like in a passing way, like we're moving around between all these other notes. Most of his notes are in, so it's all good, So right. I saw an interview with Dimebag Darrell, rest in peace, from was he Pantera, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And he was just talking about like how he would do that same sort of thing, like just play whatever, but it sounded cool, so it was cool,
Yeah.
I think that's also the other thing, like BB King. If it sounds good, it is good. You don't have to overthink it. Anyway.
Yeah.
How are we doing? Everything cool?
I think so. Does everybody understand those parts that we went through? Do you want to do maybe just the descending part a little, like?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll do that slower. Like I said, it's close to what he played. It's a little, whatever, but
no, it's cool. It sounds cool. So. It actually, that kind of reminds me of like another very like famous tremolo picking song, probably one of the early like rock and roll tremolo songs, Miserlou by Dick Dale.
Yeah.
Right? That like descending kind of gypsy scale. Yeah, like that. Yeah. Jude knows that one. Jude knows the Miserlou. That one's you've probably heard it before. I think also the Black Eyed Peas did something with it too. That it kind of reminds me of the part where it goes like the something like that, right?
Yeah.
Kind of has that similar notes that are outside of what we typically think of as our scales, right? It is a scale. I just can't remember which one it is.
Well, like, and even the notes that he's playing are kind of weird because that first melody is really kind of just E major. And then as he wiggles down, now it's like an F Phrygian scale.
Yeah,
so just
right.
Kind of changing that. He's just doing the Eddie thing, He's just weaving. He's just going between whatever, and you can do that. There's no rules in music really. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong string at the end.
All right, you're going so fast we don't notice. That's what we're talking.
Yeah, right.
Cool. Everybody
Okay.
ready? Everybody ready for number 4, or anybody need any clarification? All right, it looks like we're good for number 4.
Okay, so the last one is really kind of like one of my favorite guitar players. My tattoo on my arm is of the band Dream Theater, and this is the lead guitar player from that band. He's the only guitar player from that band. So if you've never heard of Dream Theater, I don't know, just check him out. I don't know, it's crazy. The singing is really bad, so just be ready for really bad singing, but like instrumentally it's just crazy and yeah. So like when I was a kid too, when I first started playing it's funny how like the people you hang out with even in like high school still like kind of matter subconsciously in this weird way. But basically all of my friends were just obsessed with shredding, like just picking fast. And if you couldn't pick fast, you were just bad at guitar, which is completely ridiculous, obviously. But like that was it. It was like if you couldn't shred, just go home. Like we don't even want to hang out with you. So this was like the first thing that I really could like shred and rip, and like it really impressed my friends enough where they'd be like, "Yeah, you can hang out. You're fine." So this is from Rock Discipline, which was like the when I was a junior in high school, like just on repeat VHS over and over again, working on it. We're switching from 30 seconds here to 6 tuplets. I didn't put like the picking above it, but just remember it's strict alternate picking. So there are no two downs or ups in a row. So you might have to go definitely have to go real slow, and just make sure you kind of program in the picking, but I'll play it slow first. So the cool thing about the way this is built, because you got to really kind of construct runs like this in ways that are like guitaristic, or they're like in tune with the instrument. When you alternate pick, there's two different ways of changing between the strings. So you've got what's called outside the string picking, where you're picking on like the outer edges of a string. And that's going to be efficient because you're headed in the direction of your string change. So it's going to make it easier. And then there's inside the string. So like, see how my pick is like trapped in the inner corners. Mm-hmm. That's going to be harder because it's not as efficient. You're picking in the opposite direction of your string change. And if you start to try to do like string skips while you're doing something like that, that's a really challenging motion, especially to play quickly. So this avoids that altogether. There is no inside the string picking. It's built in a way on purpose where he can just fly. You don't have to worry about it, and that's going to make it easier to play ultimately. So for the picking, it's just, it's going to be strict down, up as you're going, but we've got 3 notes groupings. So, just when you change strings, you're going to be like down, down, and then you change with an up. So down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. And all he's doing is taking a basic E minor scale. We're playing the first 6 notes and then just hopping up and starting from like that second note, and then they overlap. And then the note that we started from, an octave above, is just magically right there on the 4th string. So then we just start the pattern over again. So it's the same group of notes, it's the same basic shape. All you got to do is find that starting point. So it starts on 12th fret, then 14, and then eventually 17 all the way up here. So that's the first part. Now, if you don't have a 24 fret guitar, like my guitar is 24 frets, this might be like the top fret on your instruments, fret number 22. It might feel real jammed up in there, and that's okay. Remember our, my basic fretting rule is always put like the weight of your finger towards the top part of the fret. If you're putting your finger right in the middle, you're going to get probably like a missed note, or like the finger tone won't be very good. So even in those little teeny baby frets, still kind of roll the weight of your finger up there to get better tone. So that's kind of the first part. So I would recommend breaking it in 2. So take that first part where you go up the neck, and then you got the next part where we wiggle our way down the neck. Oops. So the way down is going to be a lot more challenging because we are going to have some string skipping. But like I said, the picking is going to line up in a way where it's going to be easier because you're headed in the direction of your string change. So that'll make it easier. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So it's the same picking the whole time. And as far as all the frets, you'll have to just kind of read the tab. If I start yelling out all these numbers, it'll make this kind of take forever. Yeah. So I will try to play it fast. that is the one. That one's a lot of fun especially when you start being able to really get that one going on. Now, as far as frets above the fifth. What was I going to say? So like, this kind of thing can start to, this is like sort of what gives like, especially 80s guitar players like a bad rap, where it starts to turn into this like arms race of like,
right.
Like music isn't an athletic competition, so playing like a whole lot of this isn't going to make you a well-rounded musician. This is like, think of it like sugary candy, like you can have a little, but like you're not going to want to do it the whole time, or your listener's going to get real bored. Yeah. So a good example of how you can use this in a musical way where it won't totally just be like a vulgar display of notes is there's a Dream Theater instrumental called Hell's Kitchen. And that like, it's got this kind of like really pretty sort of vibe, especially in the beginning. And there's this guitar solo, and he kind of caps the solo with all of this kind of craziness that I was just playing. That's like a musical way of showing how you can use it, in like a, to kind of cap off something, if that kind of makes sense. Think of like these sort of fast notes as being like, you got to like make some sort of a musical statement around that, like this right. is like the culmination. You could use it as like a device to get from one idea to another, especially if you're like improvising. So maybe like playing something, singing and melodic, and then you play some kind of quick picked run, and then you end with something, maybe like very syncopated or something, so like you don't want to just quick pick all the time, cause then that is boring, and that's, you're just gonna, put the crowd to sleep at that point. But I know all of that is subjective ultimately. And that's like the fun thing about,
you should check out another band, and since we're on the topic of kitchens, there's another band called Humphreys McGee, and they have a song called "In the Kitchen," which does a really nice way of like having different types of these riffs. It goes, they're like jam bandy, but they're like, what makes them stand out a little bit differently than some of the jam band's crew is like there's heavy metal influence in what they're doing. So a lot of their jammy stuff kind of like, it's heavy. Like you're like, whoa, this actually rocks out a little bit. They're two very, very good guitar players that harmonize with each other all the time. They do these like very cool harmonized guitar riffs that like they go from being very clean and polished to like that really dirty outside the box right away. From one phrase to the next, they'll do this stuff. So that's another one to check out. I don't listen to Humphreys McGee too much anymore. Same things. Like I'm like a recovering fish head and a recovering Humphreys McGee fan, but they're impressive, definitely, and they do write some really, really cool guitar parts. So give them a shot. Check them out. If anybody else has any other suggestions of things we can listen to and that are this kind of and I did mention Miserlou by Dick Dale. Now that's tremolo picking, right? That's the Miserlou. It's not really paying attention to it being 30-second notes. He's literally just playing like however fast I can. That's like surf guitar. Surf guitar isn't, it's loose. It's got that like California looseness vibe to their music, like garage rock. It's kind of garage rocky in a way. So, Eric Johnson, yeah, any Eric Johnson song, yeah, pretty much, right? He does a lot of notes, but he's very tasteful too. I would say Eric Johnson, like he's, like what's the one, his really popular one, Cliffs of Dover, like that's a beautiful song. Like, yeah, it's got some shreddy parts in it that he does, but like it's like the melody's really beautiful. So, all right, anybody got any questions? No? Rob, you covered everything on guitar. No one has any questions on the end of your clinics. That means you're killing it. So,
boy, I just talk too much. I'm just blabbing about nothing.
hey man, that's what we're here for. We all come on, we're all stuck inside. We need to just either talk or listen or get something else. So,
yeah.
Not just looking at the wall anymore. Well, thanks, dude, and thank you everybody for hanging out. We'll let you know. We've got an open mic tonight. If anybody wants to hop on, we've got our Zoom open mic at 6:00. Pop on. You don't have to play. You could just sit in and listen for your first time and just and then if you see, hey, I actually do want to play, then hop in and play. You don't need to sign up really. I mean, the email and everything said sign up, but just show up and we'll if you could just stay for 10 minutes, that's cool. But Marshall, hold on. Yeah, what you got?
Is it today, the 6:00?
Tonight at 6:00. So we got like 5 hours. So if you don't have anything prepared, you got 5 hours to figure it out. Right?
Get writing.
I got to figure out something that I'm going to play, I guess, tonight too. I haven't thought about it at all. Steve, your family Beatles party was amazing.
Basketball play or maybe Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, man, play your Led Zeppelin song that you're working on. Yeah, like it could be anything you want.
Okay.
Cool. Well, Thank you, Rob, and we hope to see some of you guys at the open mic tonight. And
thanks for everybody who popped on and checked this out this week. I appreciate it.
I'll put the link one more time in the chat, and we'll also have this uploaded on YouTube and Facebook with that link to the tab in there in case you lose it or anything. Or just email me or Rob any questions you have or anything. All right? All right, peeps.
All right.
Peace out. Thanks so much. Have a good one.